If you think learning to sew is expensive or complicated, let me stop you right there. You do not need a fancy machine, a craft room, or a million tools to get started learning how to sew. Most people put off sewing because they think they're missing something, but the truth is you can start with way less than you think. In this video, I'm going to show you exactly what you need and what you absolutely don't, so that you can stop overthinking and start sewing today. I'm Erin with Bird & Bear Styles. With over 30 years of sewing experience, I'm here to show you that starting sewing doesn't have to be complicated or expensive. So if you've been thinking this is the year that you want to start sewing, or you need a little help fixing something today, I'm here to show you how to do that. Today I'm going to show you some of the basic tools to get you sewing, and a few different ways that you can use those tools. At its most basic, you're going to need a needle for hand stitching, some sort of thread, and a small pair of sharp scissors. A few bonus tools would be a container of pins and a fabric measuring tape. You can buy these tools separately, or you can find a small sewing kit on Amazon or at your local big box store. I found this starter sewing kit on Amazon for only $10, and it has more than enough supplies to get you started. Let's take a look at some of the items included in this kit. It comes with a bunch of different color of threads, which can be really handy if you're trying to mend something. But if you really want something to last, you should invest in some higher quality thread. My favorite thread is Gutermann 100% polyester thread. I use this on almost all of my sewing projects and any mending that I have to do. This strange looking tool is called a stitch ripper. It's used to cut any stitches that you need to remove. This is an important tool, but it's one that you don't have to invest extra in. I've had this one, which probably cost $1, for over 30 years. This kit includes some sewing pins, which is really nice. Sewing pins are really inexpensive and definitely worth replacing every once in a while. They don't need to be anything special, but you want to make sure that they're nice and sharp. Otherwise, you could run the risk of damaging your fabric when you're pinning it. This kit includes a plastic darning needle and a few safety pins. My darning needle is metal, and I've had the same one forever. This is really handy if you're trying to tuck a stitch back into the fabric or fixing pulls on a sweater. Safety pins can be used just for an emergency repair or for rethreading elastic or a drawstring through a gathering. A tape measure is another handy, inexpensive item that can be added to your sewing kit. It doesn't have to be anything fancy and should include inches and centimeter measurements. A fabric measuring tape is flexible so that you can take your measurements and also measure different fabrics. Most sewing kits include a pair of little scissors. Usually they're not very strong or sturdy, and really in a pinch you could use something like nail clippers just as good. I highly recommend getting a little bit better pair of scissors. They don't have to be anything fancy, just something small like a 5-inch pair of scissors, and that's quite sharp with a pointed end. While we're talking about scissors, let's just briefly talk about the different options available to sewists. Again, this little pair of 5-inch scissors is one of my most used sewing tools. This doesn't have to be an expensive item. I found these scissors for sale on Amazon for $8. I keep it at my desk while I'm sewing for snipping threads, as well as trimming back fabrics once I'm done. While round rotary cutters can be useful for cutting certain fabrics, they're really not necessary. Remember, if you have a rotary cutter, you need to have a cutting mat, which actually can run quite expensive. I find the precision of cutting out fabrics and patterns with scissors way more accurate. I have a few pairs of Singer sewing scissors, which run quite expensive, but honestly the best scissors I've ever had for cutting fabric are these ones. They're an 8-inch Fiskars stainless steel scissor. I found them on Amazon for $25, and they are so sharp and accurate. I would highly recommend starting with these when you're cutting fabric. So let's take some of these tools and show you how to use them. You're going to take a length of thread off of your spool, probably close to double the length you think you need. And cut it with sharp scissors so that the ends of the thread don't fray. This makes threading the needle much easier. Once the needle is threaded, pull the thread down so that the two ends meet at the bottom. You're going to do something called the magic knot here at the end. Pinch those two ends together with your thumb and finger, wrap it once over your finger, and rub your thumb against your finger once. Then you can pull the knot tight. It sometimes will give you a little bit of a loop of threads at the knot, but it works great and is a fast way to get your needle started. The running stitch is a great first stitch to learn. You're going to start by inserting your needle from the back or the wrong side where you want the stitch to start. You leave a stitch space, whatever length you want that to be, and insert the needle from the front or the right side. You're going to leave a stitch space and insert the needle from the wrong side again. You repeat this until you reach the end of what you wanted to stitch. While it isn't the strongest of all the stitches, it is easy, fast, and can be used in a wide variety of applications. You would use this stitch for a really quick fix if a seam ripped, quickly basting together an item to try on before sewing, or basting something complicated like installing a tricky zipper. This is why it's called a running stitch. There are no stops or backstitching. You just keep running the stitch through your fabric. Now you'll fasten off the end of your seam. Flip over your work to the wrong side. For this one, we're going to make a tiny stitch. And before we pull it all the way through, we're going to thread that needle through the thread loop. And when we pull that tight, it makes a little knot. And here is our running stitch all finished. The backstitch is a much stronger stitch. To get started, you're going to insert your needle from the wrong side, one stitch length in from where you want your stitch to start. You'll leave a stitch space, working backwards, and insert the needle from the right side. You're going to leave two stitch spaces, working forwards, and insert the needle from the wrong side. Again, you'll leave a stitch space, working backwards, and insert the needle from the right side. You'll feel essentially like you're making loops in the fabric as you work. A backstitch is a fairly strong stitch. You could use this for conventional sewing, replacing something you would sew with a sewing machine. This is also a great stitch for a clothing repair on a torn hem, as the finished product can really mimic the look of a sewing machine stitch. Once you're done, flip your work over to the wrong side. To finish off this seam, you can make a small stitch like we did with our running stitch, or just loop the thread around the back stitches to create little knots. And this is our nice clean back stitch once it's complete. The Whipstitch is a super handy stitch for clothing repairs. For this stitch, we work on the edge of the fabrics that we want to join or rejoin. While pinching the fabrics together, you're going to insert your needle in between the two fabrics. This way the knot at the end of your thread will be hidden in the stitch once you're done. Pull the thread across the opening and insert the needle, pushing the needle through both fabrics this time. Pull the thread across the opening again and insert the needle, this time leaving a little space between this and the last stitch. This is my top stitch choice for clothing repairs, like tears or little holes. An important tip for good finish result is to work from the wrong side of the garment. Do a quick whip stitch in the area that needs repair, and as long as the stitches are fairly tight, it will be nearly invisible from the right side once it's done. This is also the stitch that you would use to attach a patch to cover a bigger hole or rip. You can do these stitches as close or as far apart as you would like. For a quick basic repair, do the stitches further apart. For a tight, strong, tidy repair, do the stitches close together. To fasten off the end of this row, you're going to make a tiny stitch, and before we pull it all the way through, we're going to thread the needle through the thread loop. When we pull that tight, it will make a little knot. And here is our completed whip stitch. The ladder stitch is a little trickier to execute, but is a very tidy way to repair a ripped seam. Insert your needle inside the seam into one of the fabrics. Push the needle out from the folded edge of one side. This way the knot at the end of your thread will be hidden in the stitch once you're done. Go directly across to the other folded edge. Insert the needle. Come out of the fold one stitch length down the seam. Go back to the first side and insert your needle, lining it up with where you last came out. Come out of the fold one stitch length down the seam. Repeat this back and forth. You're making little horizontal stitches that look like the rungs of a ladder. Every few stitches, pull the thread tight and the seam will magically close and disappear. Because this stitch is so invisible once completed, it's a great stitch to use when closing up a pillow cover, closing a jacket lining, and is excellent at repairing a ripped seam. To fasten off the end of this row, you're going to make a tiny stitch, thread the needle through the thread loop as you pull tight, and close a small knot. And this is how the ladder stitch looks once it's completed. And that's it for today. Remember, not everyone's perfect at sewing when they first start, so just keep practicing and have fun with it. If you liked today's video and want more videos like this, remember to hit like and subscribe below. Until the next time, have fun sewing.